The auction of worthless lives. The marketplace was alive with cruel voices, a place where the weak were sold like broken tools. The air was heavy with smoke and the smell of old blood. Strange cages lined the path, and inside them creatures sat with lowered heads, some trembling, some silent, all waiting for their turn. The trader shouted loud words to the crowd, each one trying to convince buyers that their slave or beast had value. Some shouted about strength, others about speed, some about beauty. But then came a moment when the crowd laughed instead of listening. In the center of the stage stood a thin alien girl, her skin pale and marked with bruises, her arms shaking as if they could not carry her own weight. Her eyes were empty like a broken mirror. The trader who owned her pulled her forward by a chain and laughed. He told the crowd that she was not good for labor, not good for pleasure, not even good for breeding. He raised his hand and shouted to everyone, "Only good for meat!" The crowd roared with laughter. Some pointed at her, some spat on the ground, others shouted offers of a few scraps, not as a real bid, but only to insult her further. The girl stood silent. She had heard these words too many times. Her lips did not move. Her eyes looked down at the dusty floor. Among the crowd was a man who did not laugh, a human soldier dressed in worn armor. His hair was short, his face hard, his eyes sharp like steel. He watched the girl carefully, his hands folded across his chest. He listened to the laughter and the insults, but his mind was not with the crowd. The trader grew angry when no one placed a real bid. He shouted again, saying she was worthless. He pulled her forward so hard she almost fell. Her knees bent, but she stayed on her feet. The crowd laughed louder. The trader raised his voice and shouted, "Fine, if no one wants this trash, then I will sell her cheap, even less than a piece of rotten meat." The human soldier stepped forward, his boots hitting the ground with a sound that made the crowd turn. Silence fell for a short moment. Everyone looked at him with surprise. The human pointed at the girl and said calmly, "I will buy her." The trader's mouth opened wide. He laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, but the human's face was serious. He reached into his belt and pulled out a pouch of credits. He tossed it to the trader without even asking the price. The pouch hit the trader's chest and coins spilled out. The crowd began to whisper, some in shock, some in mockery. Why would a human waste money on that? One voice said, "He must be mad. She is not even worth a bone." Another voice said. Others laughed and shouted that humans were strange creatures. The girl lifted her head slowly, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She could not believe anyone would pay for her. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The chain around her neck was released, and the trader shoved her forward roughly. "She is yours now. Take your meat," he said with disgust. The human soldier caught her before she fell, his hands steady and strong. For the first time in years, she felt a touch that was not cruel. He looked at her face, at her hollow eyes, and said nothing. He only turned and began to walk away with her at his side. Behind them, the crowd burst into noise, half laughter, half disbelief. They shouted at the human, mocking him, asking if he would cook her for dinner, asking if he would throw her to his beasts, asking if he wanted to test how long worthless flesh could live. But the human did not answer. He walked forward with heavy steps, each one calm and steady. The girl's mind was storming with fear. She had been sold many times before, but never like this. Every buyer had used her, beaten her, or discarded her. None had ever looked at her with silence and purpose. She thought maybe this was just another cruel game. Maybe he would kill her later. Maybe he was waiting for a private moment to show his true face. The human soldier led her out of the marketplace and into the cold evening air. The sun was setting, painting the sky with red and gold. He stopped for a moment and looked at her, his voice low but clear. "You are not meat," he said. The words struck her like a blade through the fog in her mind. She blinked, her lips parted, but she could not answer. No one had ever said such a thing to her. She did not believe it, yet a small part of her heart wanted to. Behind them, the marketplace noise grew distant, the shouts, the insults, the laughter all fading away. In her ears, only the human's words remained. The journey had just begun, but already the world around her felt different. Something was changing. and she did not yet know if it was hope or another cruel trick. The human's strange choice. The girl walked beside the human, her steps weak, her body light, as if the wind itself could push her down. She did not dare look at him directly. Her eyes stayed on the ground. Every sound of his boots on the dirt made her flinch. She expected a sudden strike or harsh command, yet it never came. The man was silent, his face unreadable. He carried no whip, no cruel chain. His hands rested calmly on his belt. The only sound around them was the distant noise of the marketplace fading behind. The girl's heart pounded fast. Fear burned inside her chest. She whispered to herself, "Why did he buy me? What does he want from me?" They reached a quiet place outside the city walls, an old building half broken, smoke rising from a small fire inside. It was his shelter. Nothing fancy, just iron walls and scraps of wood. He pushed the door open and guided her inside. The girl hesitated at the door. She thought maybe he would trap her, but when she stepped in, she found warmth instead of chains. The man pointed at a seat near the fire. She sat slowly, her thin body trembling. He walked to a table and poured water into a metal cup, then placed it in front of her. The smell of clean water filled her nose. Her throat ached with hunger and thirst. She stared at the cup, afraid it was a trick. He said only 2 words, "Drink it." Her hands shook as she lifted the cup. Cold water touched her lips, and for the first time in many days, she drank. It burned down her throat, but it was life itself. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she clutched the cup close. She whispered, Why are you giving me this?" The man did not answer at first. He leaned back against the wall, his eyes watching the fire. Finally, he said, "Because you are still alive." The words confused her. She remembered the traitor shouting that she was only meat, the crowd laughing. She remembered every hand that had struck her, every word that had called her worthless. And now this human spoke as if she mattered. Her mind could not accept it. Her voice cracked. Alive, but useless. The man turned his head slowly, his eyes sharp but calm. Alive means there is more. They do not see it, but I do. The girl lowered her eyes. Her heart shook. A storm of feelings rose inside her. She wanted to believe him, but years of pain told her not to. She whispered, "You do not know me. You will see soon. I am nothing." He did not argue. He only handed her a small piece of bread from his pack. She stared at it in shock. Food was something she had begged for and been denied too many times. She took it slowly and ate, each bite painful but filling. The night grew darker, the fire crackled, silence filled the room. She sat near the flames, her hands around her knees, her mind heavy with thoughts. She kept glancing at him, waiting for cruelty, waiting for the mask to fall. But he sat calmly, sharpening a knife, not looking at her with hunger or anger, just patience. At last she broke the silence. "Why me? Why not another? I was worth nothing." He looked up, his face unreadable. "That is what they said, not what I see." The girl shivered. The words felt like a fire inside her chest. She turned her head away, afraid he might see the tears in her eyes. Suddenly, outside the broken building, voices echoed, rough and loud. Footsteps crushed the dirt. Shadows moved against the firelight. The girl's heart jumped in fear. She whispered, "They followed you. They want me back. They will kill me." The man stood, his hand on his weapon, his voice calm. "Stay here." The door burst open. 2 alien thugs stepped inside, laughing. One pointed at the girl. "We saw the human take the worthless meat. We came to take her back. No one steals trash from us." The man's eyes narrowed, his voice cold. "She is not yours anymore." The aliens laughed louder, their blades glinting. "Not yours either, human. Give her, or we cut you down." The girl froze, fear choking her throat. She waited to see him throw her aside to save himself, but instead the human moved forward. His blade flashed in the firelight, faster than her eyes could follow. One thug fell to the ground with a cry. The other stumbled back, his arm bleeding. The human stepped closer, his voice like iron. "Tell them, she is not meat, and she is not yours. Tell them a human claimed her." The wounded alien fled into the night, his screams fading. Silence returned. The girl stared wide-eyed at the man, her chest tight with fear and something else, something she had never felt before. He cleaned his blade and sat back down near the fire, as if nothing had happened. He looked at her and said, "Eat more. Tomorrow will be harder." Her hands trembled as she reached for another piece of bread. Her heart was racing, not from fear of him now, but from the strange thought that maybe, just maybe, he was different. Maybe his strange choice was not madness. Maybe it was hope. The first test of survival. The morning came cold and gray. The fire in the broken shelterway, us nothing but ashes now. The girl woke to the sound of boots moving across the floor. The human was already ready, his pack on his back, his weapon strapped to his side, his face calm as stone. He looked at her and spoke in his steady voice. "We move now." The girl sat up slowly, her body weak and sore. She wanted to ask where they were going, but her voice did not come. She followed him outside. The sun was hidden behind heavy clouds. The world beyond the city walls looked wide and dangerous. Empty roads stretched far into dry hills. Her feet dragged with every step. She had no shoes. Her legs trembled. Still the human kept walking. He did not slow down. She thought he would leave her behind, but each time she stumbled, he stopped and waited. His eyes sharp but patient. Hours passed, the silence between them heavy. Her stomach hurt with hunger, yet she forced herself to keep moving. Then, far ahead, shadows appeared, rough figures stepping out from behind rocks, armed with blades and crude weapons. Bandits. The girl's heart froze. She whispered in fear, "They are coming for me, they will take me, they always do." The human placed his hand on his blade, but his voice was calm. "Stay behind me." The bandits laughed as they walked closer, their faces twisted with greed. One of them pointed at the girl. "The human carries meat, worthless but fresh. Give her to us, human, and you may walk away." Another bandit smirked. "You paid credits for trash. Let us save you from your foolish mistake." The girl trembled, her body shaking like a leaf in storm winds. She expected him to push her forward, to trade her for his safety, but instead the human stepped in front of her, his blade drawn, his voice hard. "She is mine. You will not touch her." The bandits laughed louder, then rushed forward, weapons raised. The clash came quick. The human's blade flashed. One bandit fell with a cry. Another's arm was cut deep. The girl stumbled back, her heart racing, her breath shallow. But then she saw a third bandit creeping behind the human with a hidden dagger. Her eyes widened, her voice cracked. "Behind you!" The human turned just in time. His blade met the dagger, steel against steel. Sparks flew. With one swift strike, he ended the fight. The last bandit fell to the ground, silent. The dust settled. The bodies lay still. The human wiped his blade clean, his breathing calm as if this battle meant nothing. The girl stood frozen, her chest heaving, her voice shaking. "Why did you not give me to them? You could have been safe." The human looked at her, his eyes steady. "Safe is nothing if it means losing yourself. I do not give what is mine." His words struck deep. The girl lowered her head. She whispered to herself, "Mine, but why?" They walked on, leaving the bandits behind. The road stretched long, the silence heavy, yet something in her heart felt different. For the first time she had warned someone. For the first time her voice had saved another. As the day passed, the hills grew darker, the wind colder. Her legs weak again. She stumbled once more, this time falling to her knees. She expected anger, but the human stopped. He reached into his pack and placed dried food in her hands. She looked at the food, tears burning her eyes. She whispered, "Why do you care? I am worthless. Only meat. Everyone said it." The human crouched down, his face close, his voice strong. "Everyone lies when it is easy. I do not care what they said. I see what they cannot." The girl stared at him, her lips trembling, her heart beating fast. She felt something strange, something heavy in her chest that she did not understand. Night came. They found a cave to rest. The fire crackled inside. Shadows danced on the walls. The girl sat near the flames, her eyes fixed on him. She thought of the bandits. She thought of how he fought for her. She thought of how she warned him and saved him, even if just for a moment. Her voice was low, filled with confusion. I was told I would die useless, yet today I did not, because of you. The human looked into the fire, his voice calm. No, because you spoke, because you chose. The words shook her. She hugged her knees tight. She whispered to herself, chose me. Outside, the night wind howled like a beast, but inside the cave, for the first time, the girl felt something she never thought she would. Not safety, not trust, but the beginning of both. Still, in her heart, a question grew like a shadow. Why is he doing this? Why me? And the suspense of that question would not leave her, the girl's hidden past. The cave fire burned low, smoke curling into the night. The human sat silent, sharpening his blade, his eyes steady and calm. The girl sat close to the flames, her arms around her knees, her thin frame shivering though the fire was warm. She kept stealing glances at him, her heart heavy, her mind torn. She wanted to ask, she wanted to know, yet fear held her tongue. Finally her voice came weak but clear. Why do you keep me alive, human? You could have chosen anyone, yet you chose me. He looked at her for a long moment, then turned back to the blade. Because I do not see what they see. Her lips trembled, her voice cracked. And what do you see? The human did not answer right away. His silence was heavy. Only the sound of steel on stone filled the cave. The girl lowered her head, shame flooding her. Her memories rose like ghosts from the dark corners of her mind. She spoke again, this time not asking, but confessing. I was born weak, weaker than others of my kind. I could not run fast. I could not fight strong. Even my own people looked at me with disgust. Her voice shook, her fingers dug into her knees. My parents cast me out. They said I was useless. I was taken by traders, sold again and again, each time cheaper, until they stopped calling me a being and started calling me meat. Her tears fell, but she did not hide them. The words spilled out like broken chains. I learned not to cry. I learned not to speak because no one cared. No one ever cared. Not until you. The fire flickered. The human finally set the blade aside. He looked at her with eyes that carried no pity, only truth. They were blind. Weakness is not the same as worthlessness. Her chest ached at his words. She wanted to believe them, but her mind screamed that it was impossible. She whispered, "Then why do I still feel broken?" He leaned closer, his voice low but firm. Because they taught you lies, and you lived inside them too long. The girl hugged herself tighter. The firelight danced across her skin. Then something strange happened. On her shoulder, under the dirt and bruises, a faint glow appeared, soft at first, then brighter, like a hidden mark awakening. The human's eyes narrowed. His hand went to his weapon, but he did not draw it. He stared at the glow, his voice calm but sharper now. "What is that?" The girl gasped. She looked down at her shoulder, her eyes wide. The glow shimmered like liquid light. Fear filled her voice. "No, not again. Not now." The human stepped closer, his tone serious. "Tell me." She shook her head, tears streaming. "It is nothing, please. It is nothing. Forget it." But the light spread faintly across her arm, thin lines like veins of fire. The girl's body trembled, her voice broke. "I never wanted this. I never asked for it. It brings only pain." The human's eyes stayed locked on her, his voice unshaken. "What are you hiding?" Finally, she collapsed to the ground, her face pressed to her knees, her voice spilling out like a secret she could no longer keep. "Long ago, my people believed in bloodlines, marks of power. They said I carried one. But when I was weak, they laughed. They said it was wasted, a curse, not a gift. They beat me for it. They tried to cut it away, but the mark always returned." Her hand pressed against her glowing skin, her sobs shaking her chest. "That is why they called me worthless, worse than worthless, cursed meat." The human watched her quietly, the fire reflecting in his eyes. He did not move. He did not speak for a long time. Then at last he said, "So the mark survived everything, just like you." The girl looked up in shock, her tears still fresh. You do not understand. It only brings death. Everyone who saw it hated me more. They said it meant I should not live. The human's face hardened, his voice deep and certain. Then they were fools, because if it truly meant nothing, they would not fear it. They would ignore you. Instead, they tried to destroy you. That means they were afraid, and fear always hides truth. Her heart pounded, his words twisted inside her. She had never thought of it like that, never thought fear could mean hidden power. But before she could answer, a sudden sound echoed from outside the cave, heavy footsteps, voices low but sharp, not bandits. This time, no, these were soldiers, armored and armed, searching, hunting. The human rose to his feet, his blade in hand, his voice steady. They are here for you. The girl's bawed. I went cold, her glow dimmed under fear. She whispered, They always come. They will never stop. The human turned his head toward her, his voice a promise, hard as steel. Then let them come. They will learn you are not meat, and they will learn what it means to stand against a human. The fire cracked, shadows deepened, the cave filled with the sound of danger drawing near, and in the middle of it, the girl felt something she never thought possible. Hope flickering inside her broken chest. The human versus the alien rulers. The morning came with a storm of boots and voices. The cave walls shook as soldiers surrounded the entrance, their armor heavy, their weapons glowing with strange light. The girl sat frozen, her glowing mark hidden under her sleeve. Fear burned in her chest. She whispered, They found me. The human stood tall, blade in his hand, his face calm like stone, his eyes sharp like fire. The soldiers stepped forward and their leader, a tall alien with silver armor, pointed at the girl. The cursed one belongs to us, human. Hand her over. The girl's body trembled, her voice cracked. They will kill me. They always said they would. But the human's voice was hard as iron. She is not yours. The leader laughed, his deep voice echoing. Not yours either, human. She was judged unfit by her own people. Not even worth labor, only meat. You think you can change that? The soldiers laughed with him, their cruel voices filling the air. The girl lowered her head, shame pulling her down like chains. Her tears fell silently. The leader stepped closer, his eyes glowing with cold light. If you truly believe she has worth, then prove it. We will give her a trial. If she fails, she dies as meat. If she passes, she still dies later, but slower. The crowd behind the soldiers laughed. They loved cruel games, their voices mocking. Yes, let her try. Let her break. The human tightened his grip on his blade, his eyes fixed on the alien leader. And if she does not fail, he leader smirked, then you will die with her. The human did not flinch, his voice cut through the laughter like a blade. Then I accept. The girl gasped, her heart nearly stopping. She stared at him. Why? Why would you do this? You will die because of me. He looked at her, his face calm but his eyes burning with truth. If they call you worthless, then they call me worthless too. I will not let them decide what you are. The soldiers dragged them both to the center of a great courtyard inside the alien fortress. Walls high and black, torches burning, crowds gathered to watch. Nobles sat above on stone seats, their eyes cold, their voices sharp. The girl stood trembling in the dust, her body weak, her knees shaking. The alien ruler raised his hand and shouted, Begin! From the shadows came beasts, monstrous creatures with long teeth and scales of iron. Their roars shook the ground. The crowd cheered for blood. They wanted the girl torn apart. The girl collapsed to her knees, her breath shallow, her tears falling. She whispered, I cannot fight them. I am only meat. The human knelt beside her, his voice low but strong. They call you meat because they fear what you could be. Stand up if you fall, I fall too. She looked into his eyes, her heart shook. She wanted to believe him. Her legs trembled as she forced herself to stand. The beasts charged forward, their claws tearing the earth. The crowd shouted louder. The human fought with strength and skill, his blade flashing, striking one beast, cutting deep, but another beast lunged at the girl, its jaws open wide. She screamed, her hand lifted to shield herself, and the glowing mark burst with light. A wave of energy pushed the beast back. It crashed against the stone wall with a roar. The crowd gasped in shock. Silence fell for a moment. The alien leader stood, his eyes wide, then narrowed in anger. Accursed mark. It should not exist. The girl stared at her own hand, glowing with strange fire, her breath shaking. What is this? Why is it happening? The human's voice was steady. It is not a curse. It is survival. It is strength. It is you. The beasts roared again and charged. The girl raised her arm, the glow stronger, her fear turning into something else, not rage, not hate, but a desperate will to live. Her power burst out like a storm, pushing the beasts back. The ground itself cracked. The crowd erupted, some in fear, some in awe. The nobles shouted, their voices filled with panic. She cannot be allowed to live. Stop her. But the human stood in front of her, his blade ready, his voice cold. Touch her, and you face me. The alien leader snarled, his hand raised to order the soldiers, but the girl stepped forward, her glowing eyes locked on him, her weak body now burning with strange strength, her voice steady for the first time. You called me meat. You called me worthless. But I stand, and I will not kneel again. The crowd fell silent. The torches flickered in the wind. The rulers stared down in shock. And for the first time in her life, the girl's words were heard not as weakness, but as defiance. The human placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice low but proud. Now they see what I saw. The soldiers hesitated, fear in their eyes. The beasts lay broken. The trial turned against its masters, yet danger still burned in the air, because the rulers would never let such defiance go unpunished, the awakening of strength. The courtyard was filled with silence after the beasts lay broken, the air heavy with smoke and dust. The crowd stared with wide eyes. The rulers above whispered in fear. The girl stood trembling but still on her feet, the glow on her skin burning brighter than before. The human stayed close beside her, his blade ready, his eyes fixed on the nobles who had mocked her, his voice low but clear. Do you see now? She is not meat. The alien leader's face twisted with rage. He slammed his staff against the stone, the sound echoing like thunder. She is cursed. She is dangerous. Kill them both. Soldiers rushed forward, their armor clanging, their weapons raised. The girl gasped in fear, her knees almost giving way. We cannot fight all of them. We will die. But the human placed his hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. You are not alone. Remember that. Her heart shook, her chest heavy. She felt the glow spreading through her veins. It hurt, it burned, but it also filled her with strength she never thought she had. The soldiers charged. The human met them with steel, his strikes fast and sharp, each movement full of control. Yet there were too many. Blades clashed against his, sparks flying. The girl watched as one soldier slipped past him, rushing toward her. Her breath froze. Her fear screamed. But then her mark flared. Her hand lifted on its own, and a wave of light burst out, throwing the soldier into the wall. The crowd gasped again, fear spreading like fire. Some shouted, "Monster!" Others whispered, "Power!" The rulers shouted for more soldiers, desperate to drown her light in numbers. The human fought like a storm, but for each enemy he cut down, 2 more came. Sweat covered his face, blood marked his armor, yet he did not fall. He did not slow. The girl's chest ached as she watched. Her voice broke. He fights for me, and I do nothing. No, I must fight too. She clenched her fists, the glow blazing through her body, her fear turning into fire. She stepped forward, her voice rising. I am not meat. Her power burst outward, a shield of light forming around her and the human. The soldiers slammed against it but could not break through. Their blades shattered against the glow. The human glanced at her, surprise in his eyes but also pride. Good, now hold it. She gritted her teeth, her body shaking, but the shield held. Each time a weapon struck it, The glow grew stronger, as if feeding on her will. Her legs trembled, but she did not fall. The alien leader screamed from above, his voice sharp with anger. "No! Stop her! She cannot rise! She must be broken!" But the girl raised her head, her glowing eyes meeting his, her voice steady though her body burned. "You called me worthless, you called me cursed, but I am alive, and I will not break." The human cut down another soldier and stood by her side, his blade dripping with blood, his voice cold. "You hear her now. She is no slave, no meat. She is mine, and with me she will never kneel to you again." The crowd erupted, some cheering, some shouting in fear. Chaos filled the courtyard. The rulers stood in shock, their power shaking. The girl's shield flared one last time, then shattered outward like a wave, knocking soldiers to the ground. Silence fell again, broken only by the heavy breaths of the human and the girl. The ground cracked beneath their feet, smoke rising from the ruins of the trial ground. The girl fell to her knees, her body weak, but her eyes still glowing, her voice soft but strong. "I am not what you said I was." The human helped her stand, his arms steady around her. He looked up at the rulers, his voice loud enough to shake the walls. "You said she was only good for meat. Now she stands stronger than any of you. This is your proof." The nobles whispered in fear, some even stepping back, but the alien leader's face twisted with hatred, his voice booming. "This is not over, human. She will not leave this place alive, and neither will you." The human's eyes narrowed, his grip on his blade tightening. He pulled the girl closer, his voice calm but sharp. "Then come down and try." The tension hung heavy, the glow on her skin dimming as exhaustion pulled at her, but deep inside her chest, something new had awakened. Not just power, not just survival, but the first spark of belief in herself. For the first time, she was not only alive, she was Lee. Iving and the rulers who had called her worthless now trembled at the sight of her. More than meat. The courtyard was silent after the last wave of light. Soldiers lay scattered across the ground. The dust hung heavy in the air. The girl stood leaning on the human, her body weak, her glow fading but her eyes still steady. The alien ruler stared down from his high seat, his silver armor shining in the torchlight, his voice loud with anger. "This is a lie. This is a trick. She is nothing. She cannot be allowed to live." The nobles around him murmured, their voices full of fear. Some whispered, "She carries the mark. It is power. It is real." Others whispered, "The human protects her, and he does not break." The ruler slammed his staff on the stone, the sound echoing, "Enough! Kill them both!" But no soldiers moved. Their eyes shifted nervously. They had seen the beasts fall. They had seen the shield of light. They had seen her stand when all thought she would crawl. Fear gripped their hearts. None dared to step forward. The human raised his blade, his voice cold and sharp. "You called her meat, but she is more alive than any of you. She has endured chains, scars, and shame, and still she rises. She is worth more than your entire throne." The girl trembled at his words, her lips parted. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "Why do you fight for me so much?" He looked at her, his voice steady. "Because I saw what they could not. I saw you." The ruler roared in rage. He jumped from his seat, his staff glowing with dark energy, his voice like thunder. "If no soldier will kill you, then I will." He charged down the steps, his power burning the ground. The crowd screamed. The air shook with the force of his anger. The girl clutched the human's arm, fear flooding her chest. "He will kill us both." But the human stepped forward, pulling her behind him, his blade ready, his voice calm. "Stay close. We end this together." The ruler swung his staff. Power struck the ground. Stone cracked. The human leaped aside, his blade slashing forward, sparks flying. The two clashed again and again, steel against dark energy, the sound echoing through the fortress. The girl fell to her knees, her body weak, but inside her chest the mark still glowed faintly. She clenched her fists, whispering, "Not meat, not worthless, not broken. I am alive." Her glow flared, brighter than before. Light spread across her body. She rose to her feet, her eyes glowing like fire. The ruler turned to strike her, but she lifted her hand, and the light burst forward, blocking his attack. The crowd gasped. The ruler stumbled back, his voice twisted with rage. "You should not exist." Her voice cut through the night, strong and clear. "I do exist, and I will not kneel to you again." The human struck at the same moment, his blade cutting deep into the ruler's armor. The ruler cried out, stumbling to the ground, the staff falling from his hand, the glow fading. The courtyard fell silent. The people stared, the nobles froze in shock, the soldiers lowered their weapons. No one dared to move. The girl stepped forward, her body shaking but her voice steady. "You called me cursed, you called me worthless. But today I stand. I am not meat. I am more than you will ever see." The human stood beside her, his blade still in hand, his eyes burning into the nobles. "Remember this. Humans do not measure worth the way you do. We do not see only weakness. We see what can rise, and she has risen." The nobles bowed their heads in silence, fear in their eyes. The crowd whispered, some in awe, some in shame. No one laughed, no one mocked. The ruler lay broken, his voice weak, his eyes full of hate. "She is nothing. She is so, till nothing." The human placed his blade at the ruler's throat, his voice sharp as a storm. "Say it again, and you will choke on your own lie." The ruler's mouth closed, silence took his tongue. The girl turned her eyes to the crowd, her voice soft but filled with strength. "You can call me what you want, but I know now I am not what you said I was. I am alive, and I am more than meat." The crowd lowered their heads. No one dared to answer. The human took her hand gently, guiding her out of the courtyard. The gates opened, the night air cool against their faces. They walked together through the darkness, leaving behind the fortress of chains. For the first time, the girl's steps did not drag, her body still weak, but her spirit rising. She looked at him, her voice trembling but hopeful. "You gave me back something I thought I lost forever." He looked at her, his face calm, his voice steady. "What was that?" Her tears glowed in the moonlight, her lips trembling. "The right to believe I am alive." The human nodded, his hand still holding hers, his voice low. "And that is worth more than any crown, any throne, any lie they told." The road stretched ahead, endless and unknown, but now she did not fear it. She was no longer meat, no longer cursed, no longer worthless. She was alive, and with a human beside her, she was more than she ever thought she could be. The story end. Enjoyed the story? Like it and subscribe for more.